Before I start the preview for tomorrow, there's something I hate. I hate Toronto playing Boston in the playoffs. I hate it more than anything on planet Earth. You know why? Because no matter what happens, somehow I get called out. I called that review as down the middle as I could, knowing that the best offensive defenseman on the Bruins is probably done for the playoffs. Be a miracle if he comes back. DeBrusk, concussed, probably. Might be out for a while. 30-goal scorer almost. Would have scored 30 if he'd been healthy all year. Clifton's out. This is a Bruins team that's been dealing with injuries all year. And were there dirty hits on both sides? Absolutely. I don't have time to stand here and write on the board every single little dirty hit that takes place. Mention the Kadri one because very well could lead to the NHL giving a call to Nazem Kadri. And what do people do? Jump on me. You're Bruins. And it's honestly, it makes me really mad because all year people will say, well, you know, you're really hard on your own team. And I have Bruins fans that regularly on the channel will say, You're way too hard on the Bruins. You know, they played well tonight. Why are you being so hard on them? But when they're against the Leafs, no matter what happens, whether they win, whether they lose, I automatically... And it's funny, too, because when Toronto won Game 1, I didn't get a lot of attacks, and the Bruins played pretty much the same way in Game 1 that they did in Game 2. There really wasn't a big difference. And Toronto played the same way, too. And, you know, whatever. It's frustrating, and it's why when Boston was clearly going to play Toronto in the first round, this is why I wanted Boston-Montreal. Toronto-Montreal. Anything but Boston and Toronto. Because this happens every time. Last year, this year, and just in regular season meetings too. And it's like, holy crap. You know, did I celebrate on the video? No. Did I come out and say, well, that's it, Boston's winning? No, and there's plenty of Boston fans that all day I've been seeing all these posts on social media. Oh, we're going to win. We're going to drop the Maple Leafs. No. So I do my best to be as you know, down the middle as possible. Last year I took Toronto to beat Boston in the playoffs. But, you know, I think there's a lot of people that will hear what they want. And, you know, when your team loses, I get that you're upset and whatnot. But I'm doing my best to produce content for everybody and remain as down the middle as possible. You know, do people think, gee, Shannon might be upset that Torrey Krug could be out for the rest of the playoffs? And I know. Somebody said, oh, Kevin Weeks says he's fine. Until I see him on the ice, sorry, he has a concussion history. He may be telling people he's fine, and then you do the tests, and then he's out. But no. Am I still nervous about Rask? Absolutely. Is this series over? No. Till Toronto loses one at home, they have home ice now. That out of the way, let's move on and talk about tomorrow's games. Because I'm not answering any more comments on that video. That's just toxic. And if people are upset, fine. I didn't do it. I don't play for Boston. I don't work for Boston. I cheer for the team. And that's it. And I remember back in 2011 when, you know, the Canucks were playing the Bruins in the finals, and I took a lot. I couldn't go out in public wearing Bruins gear for about 6 months after the Bruins beat the Canucks in the finals, because every time I did, I took verbal abuse from people. So, yeah, you know, this whole, oh, you're Bruins this, you're Bruins that. I've been hearing it for years. Just, it's aggravating. All right, tomorrow morning, we'll forget all about this, won't we? Pittsburgh's at home against the Islanders. The Islanders are up 2-0. And if the Islanders beat Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's really up against a wall. And the funny thing is, because we've seen the number of comebacks we have in the first, second, third round, not so much in the finals, but first, second, and third round, we don't look at a series like this and say it's done because it's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's kind of like the Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger of hockey teams. You know they're never really done. Up until that final reel, up until the credits roll, you expect them to get back up. Now, in this series, Eberle and Bailey both have 2 goals for the Islanders, Eberle's got 4 points, and he's been fantastic. Oiler fans probably like, where was he a couple years ago in the playoffs for us? There are 5 players with 2 or more points for the Islanders. It has been a very solid team effort for the Islanders. Devon Taves has 2 power play assists, and he's had a kind of a coming out party as well. On the Pittsburgh side, Malkin with a goal and 2 assists and 6 penalty minutes. So Malkin, the best of times, the worst of times with Malkin, you get the points, but you also get the frustration and the penalty minutes as a result. Crosby, Rust, and Hornqvist really stand out as the guys without points, and Crosby's frustrated in this series. They're back home. They're going to try to get that going. The 1 goal by Malkin, that's a power play goal. It is the only power play goal Pittsburgh had in the first 2 games. So for the Penguins, it is really that time where they have to come through at home. They kind of have to win both. If they get a split at home, and this is why a 2-0 series lead, as much as people say, it doesn't mean anything, kind of does, because for this road team, for another couple of road teams here, these are big games. A split does the Islanders wonders. So they don't really have to win this game tomorrow. That could lead to them letting up off the gas pedal a little bit. Hopefully they don't, but I've seen it before where you're up 2 games, you kind of let up a bit. Game 3, you let them back in the series. Robin Lehner has a save percentage of .948 through those first 2 games. Matt Murray, a save percentage of .896 for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It is a 9 a.m. Pacific time start time for this game, and is a noon Eastern start time for this game. So, yeah, it's going to be early in the morning. I will do my best to see as much of this as I can. And much like I did today, I intend to, again, tomorrow, do reviews for the separate games as they finish. I'll do one here, do one for these 2, because they're on at virtually the same time, and one for this one. And then I'll see how those videos perform, and if they perform well, then we'll do it that way for the rest of the playoffs. Don't expect that during the regular season. That's just too much. It's a lot. So during the playoffs, I can do that because the most games we're going to see in a day from here going forward is 4 games. So I can do that. That's easy enough. But the Islanders, if they can get a 3-0 series lead, then it's kind of over, because they have 4 more games to go and 2 of them are at home, and they have a 3-0 series lead. So they got them behind the 8 ball. It's a matter of being able to stomp them, and teams have trouble doing that with Pittsburgh. It's like playing whack-a-mole with them. Next up, Winnipeg in against St. Louis. The St. Louis Blues. They're up 2-0 in this series. Now, while the Islanders and the Blue Jackets can get a split, Tampa Bay and Winnipeg need to win both. Pittsburgh needs to win both as well. St. Louis will be looking for if they can just get a split at home, right? Now, if they can win all 4, then this series is over fast. And the Winnipeg Jets, who've lost 6 in a row in the playoffs now, they're staring 7 in the face. They don't want to get to 7, because 7 will probably lead to 8. On the Winnipeg side of things, Byfuglien with 3 assists. Laine with 2 goals. So they're going. They're not the problem. Which is weird because ever since November, we've been talking a lot about how Laine's struggling. He's not struggling now, but the rest of the team seems to be. Hayes and Ehlers stand out as the guys who don't have points on the Winnipeg side of things. And it is time. It is time for the Jets to get going. The problem is they were great at home and not great on the road during the regular season. Playoffs, not great at home. They're 0-2. St. Louis, on the other hand, was great on the road. At home, their home record really picked up over the last couple months of the season. Sundqvist with 2 goals and an assist. He has 3 points to lead the St. Louis Blues. He's the front runner right now for the John Druce Award. It's the guy who comes out of nowhere to score points in the playoffs. There are 6 players in St. Louis with 2 or more points. 0 power play goals for this team through the first 2 games. And Shannon Tarasenko with no points. They're ahead 2-0 without a power play goal and without Shannon Tarasenko getting on the board. That's bad news for Winnipeg because Tarasenko's going to break through, and so is Braden Shen. Hellebuck with an .897 save percentage through 2 games. He has faith in his game, and what else are you going to say? Well, I don't have any faith in my game. I suck. I've been drinking since the second period. That's just not a thing. Binnington, a .926 save percentage for the St. Louis Blues. So Binnington looking to set a new record for team rookies with 3 wins in a row. That'll be pretty fantastic. And Don Cherry started the debate as well about whether or not he should be Rookie of the Year. He's a Canadian kid. He's going to vote for Binnington for Rookie of the Year because it's a couple of Swedes that he'd be up against, right? That's just sort of the way this works. I think Binnington's Canadian. He's either Canadian or American. I'm pretty sure he's Canadian. Anyways, this game starts at 4:30 Pacific, which is early. For a St. Louis game, 7:30 Eastern. Likely trying to keep a separation between this one and Vegas for fans watching in the States. And of course, if the game goes to overtime, that throws everything off. So far in the playoffs, we've seen 3 games go to overtime, and they've all ended pretty early in the overtime. So far, so good. There's no reason to panic and talk about changing the format just yet. Winnipeg needs to change their format because, like I said, they've lost 6 in a row in the playoffs. Cannot afford to make it 7. Alrighty, moving along. Tampa. Speaking of teams that can't afford to lose another game, here's the Tampa Bay Lightning going into Columbus and going in without Kucherov. And that is massive, isn't it? This means that after 3 games, Kucherov will have played 2 and will have 0 points. And whether or not Tampa comes out of Columbus with a win is going to depend on a lot of guys who are ice cold suddenly heating up. Stamkos, point. Hedman and Johnson all have 0 points. I haven't heard yet for sure whether or not Hedman's playing in the next game. But again, like I've said, first 2 games, Victor Hedman does not look like Victor Hedman. He needs to sit because if your top defenseman, a guy who gets top 4 minutes, is not 100%, if he's a detriment, it's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? You got to pull him out of the lineup because it's playoff time. You don't have time to make sure that he's okay during the game. If he's not okay, pull him out of there and throw somebody else in. And 0 power play goals for Tampa. This is the shocking part of this series. Tampa's power play has not been dangerous, and they can't beat Bobrovsky when they need to. And there's an elephant in the room with Tampa we have not been talking about. On the Columbus side, Duchesne, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points for him. Matt Duchesne, remember Colorado fans said he was a guy who was a locker room cancer. It's interesting, too, because Buffalo fans said the same of O'Reilly, and O'Reilly's been strong for St. Louis. This is a narrative that has been in hockey for decades. And I remember when there were talks about Yzerman's leadership. I always bring that up. There's a reason. Yzerman's one of the greatest leaders I've ever seen in the history of hockey, and at some point in his career, his leadership was in question, and whether or not the Red Wings should keep him as their centerpiece was in question. Giving up on players can be very dangerous because they can come back to bite you. 5 players right now in Columbus with 2 or more points. It has been a really solid run, and Duchesne and Werenski with the power play goals for them. So the power play is benefiting Columbus. Shorthanded goals, benefiting Columbus. I believe Columbus has at least 1. They might have 2. This is an insane little run. I know Tampa Bay's got a shorthanded goal for themselves as well, but this has been crazy. And so when I see people saying, well, it's the same as last year. They had a 2-0 series lead last year. The only thing the same is the number of games. The way these games have turned out, what Columbus was dealing with last year in Washington compared to what they're dealing with this year with Tampa is completely different. Vasilevsky, .830 save percentage. They're not going to Domingue. This is not the regular season where they can put in Domingue and he'll get a win and it's guaranteed because they win for Domingue. This team isn't putting up goals, and Vasilevsky isn't making those key saves. Now, it's not all on Vasi. I know that. The way that the defense has been playing for Tampa has been atrocious. But Vasi's not making those really big saves either on some of those shots that maybe he would have got during the regular season. Bobrovsky, a .925 save percentage. Yeah, we would not have been surprised if coming out of Game 2 it was Vasi with the .925 and Bobrovsky with the .830. And after the first period in Game 1, it kind of looked like that's how it was going to go. It's turned quickly. They've outscored Tampa 9-1 in the last 5 periods of hockey. It's not over. The fat lady isn't singing in these series, but she could be warming up if the teams that are down 2-0 don't get their game together. This game starts at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Set your clocks, get yourself all ready, because this one I think is going to be crazy. If Tampa goes down early in this one, watch for a very physical game to break out. And Ken Dubois get off the snide. He's a guy who stands out as having 0 points. He's also a -2 in this series. Let's see if he can pick it up and get his numbers in line with the rest of his team. And finally, last but not least, Vegas at home against San Jose. This is the first home game for Vegas. Vegas now with home ice. If Vegas can win all 3 of their home games, They win the series. They don't have to win in San Jose, but if they win both of them at home, they win in San Jose, they win it in 5. The machine starts all over again. And it will be very interesting to see what happens should that take place. This series is, of course, tied at 1. Erik Karlsson leads the way for San Jose with 4 points, all assists. There are 8 players with 2 or more points for the San Jose Sharks. Meyer and LeBanc stand out as guys with 0 points for San Jose. So Timo Meyer with 30 goals during the season, probably expected to have something at this point. LeBanc has been a huge spark plug for them. If LeBanc can get it going and start putting pucks in the net, that's huge. And if they could get Donskoy in the lineup and motivated to be playoff Jonas Donskoy, they have a better chance as well. San Jose is starting to worry me. Game 1, they looked great. Game 2, it looked like the team that they were going into the playoffs. Now they're going into Vegas, where Vegas is very strong in the playoffs. Pacioretty, 1 goal, 3 assists for him. So Max Pacioretty, again, right? On his way to Montreal, the guy's not a leader. He's nothing. He's great. We're glad he's gone. In the playoffs, he's got 4 points in 2 games. It is crazy the number of redemption stories we're having. And I could be doing a video 3 weeks from now when we get to like around the Final 4 about redemption stories in this year's playoffs, because there's a lot of made-for-TV movies that potentially come out of this group. Stone with 3 goals, Stastny with 3 assists. But those 3 players, that line, that's the only line that has a player with more than 2 points, or with at least 2 points in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see if Vegas can really get that scoring going again tomorrow night. Marchessault has not got on the board yet. I would expect that he will tomorrow night. And for San Jose, they got to be really careful, because after a really solid game for Jones in Game 1, he looked shaky in Game 2, gets pulled early. He gets pulled regularly against Vegas. He has an .848 save percentage in these playoffs. Dell, who spelled him out last game, has an .875. Fleury with an .899 save percentage. The game starts at 7 p.m. Pacific time in Vegas, 10 p.m. Eastern. I don't blame people on the East Coast for saying, I'll just wake up and find out the score in the morning. I don't. I often say, and during the playoffs this is especially true, I am very fortunate that I have this channel and that I do my videos on the West Coast, because if it was on the East Coast, I would be up till 4 or 5 in the morning some days, and it would just be awful. And it would leave me, so I wouldn't be able to function regularly on the weekends. So I'm very glad that I'm on the West Coast. I do feel, bad for people who get that bing, that notification on the East Coast at like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm going to try to keep that to a minimum during the playoffs this year. But, these playoffs have been a lot of fun, and it definitely is a good thing for me that I'm on the West Coast, and it's not too late at night when these games are all over. So that being said, this preview is over, and like I said, I don't like to see dirty plays any more than anybody else does. I have done videos before on Marchand's suspensions and said they should have been longer. I've done videos where Marchand doesn't get suspended and say he should have been. I do not have a blind eye when it comes to nefarious deeds from players on teams I cheer for, which is why when Kessler and Burroughs were in Vancouver, they aggravated me too. Lapierre was one that aggravated me in Vancouver. When they were all on the ice, anyways, whole other story for a whole other time. Thank you guys so much for all your support, for people who understand and for people who get it. Thank you so much. It is greatly appreciated. The playoffs is a time of high emotions. People get upset. They're very protective of their teams, and I get that. And I do my best every day when I do these to keep that in mind whenever I do review videos, preview videos, and even the other fun little evergreen videos I try to put in between. Thank you guys so much. The channel growth's been amazing. I'm looking forward to that continuing throughout the playoffs. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, and for everybody who's liked and subscribed over the last week, welcome to the channel, and I'll talk to you again soon.